Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. You ever get that feeling like traditional tests are like really testing your patience more than what you actually know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just not a good measure. Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. You know, like how AI is kind of flipping the script on education, especially how we like measure what we know.
Yeah, definitely.
Our source for this deep dive is going to be Mark Rollins' piece, AI and the Future of Educational Assessment. So if you want to follow along at home,
Great piece.
get ready to like rethink everything you thought you knew about, those pop quizzes and standardized tests, because we're going to a whole new world.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's like really pushing us to think differently about, what testing even means. In an age where you can just like Google anything.
It's true.
We've had these like same methods for so long, but like, are they really effective anymore?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're using a rotary phone when everyone else has smartphones. Yeah. And we've got these AI tools like ChatGPT, can like spit out essays, and then Wolfram Alpha, it's just like crunching numbers like instantly.
All right.
Like it makes memorization almost obsolete.
It really makes you wonder, like, what should we even be testing anymore,
That's a great point.
Rollins, he argues that this is like, it's a shift that was already happening, but AI is just like speeding it up. Like we're moving away from that rote memorization.
Right.
And going more towards authentic assessments that like actually measure those real world skills,
Right. The stuff that you can just like Google the answers to like problem solving,
Exactly.
critical thinking, like those skills that really matter. But then,
Exactly.
okay, so then what do those assessments look like? Are we talking about like robot judges or something?
Not robots like judging you, but think more like complex projects, like multi-step projects. Imagine like designing a sustainable city.
Wow.
Or writing code for a new app, or even like analyzing a real business problem, things that require you to like use that knowledge and collaborate and actually show like you understand it,
Okay, so that does sound a lot more engaging than just like cramming for a multiple choice exam.
It's a lot more like real world,
Yeah, absolutely. But then how do you grade that? How do you grade something that complex? It seems like it would take forever.
Well, that's where AI can come in and be super helpful,
Okay.
Imagine AI tools that can like analyze student work, look for specific skills, provide personalized feedback.
Right.
And even point out, where a student might need a little extra help.
So it's not like the AI is replacing the teacher. It's like giving teachers superpowers almost.
Exactly.
To help students learn better.
It's like giving them an extra set of hands,
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. But this all sounds very futuristic. Is this actually happening anywhere right now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Finland, for example. They're already like weaving AI into their education system.
Those Finns, always ahead of the game.
Yeah, they're moving away from those standardized tests and focusing more on what they call inquiry-based learning.
Okay.
Where students are like tackling these real problems, using AI for research and analysis.
That's really interesting. But let's get real for a second. Isn't there a huge concern with AI making it super easy to cheat?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely that concern. But Rollins, he makes a really interesting point. Instead of fighting AI, what if we like embrace it?
Okay.
What if we use its potential to actually make learning better?
I'm intrigued. Like, how would we do that?
Well, imagine, teaching students not just how to use these AI tools, but also like how they work, their limitations.
Oh, so like AI literacy almost.
Exactly. And the ethical considerations that come along with using AI.
Right. So they're not just passive users. They're like creators.
Exactly. They're informed creators. They're critical thinkers.
Okay. That's cool. That's very cool. Like that's a real 21st century education.
Yeah.
But how do we shift our whole system in that direction? It seems like such a huge change.
Yeah. It's a monumental task. You're right.
Right.
We're talking like a systemic overhaul.
Right.
Starting with how we train teachers.
Oh, yeah.
How we design curriculum, and even like what we define as success in education. It's
right.
like a whole new way of thinking about education,
And we're back for part 2 of our deep dives. The last part we were talking about how AI can like completely change testing and stuff.
Right.
But what about the learning process itself? Can AI make learning more like personalized?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting things about AI in education is that idea of tailoring, the education to each student's needs and their learning style.
Yeah.
Moving away from that like one size fits all approach that we've had for so long.
Right. Like it's almost like having a personal tutor for every student, which sounds amazing, but also kind of impossible. Is that even like feasible in a real classroom?
It's becoming more and more feasible. Every day AI-powered learning platforms are already starting to pop up. and they can like analyze a student's learning patterns, figure out, where they're struggling, and then suggest like personalized content just for them.
So like if I'm a student and I'm like breezing through algebra, but I'm getting stuck in geometry, the AI could create a special learning plan just for me.
Exactly. It could be like, hey, you need a little extra help with this geometry concept.
Right.
Let's give you some more practice problems, maybe a different explanation that makes more sense to you, or even connect you with like online resources that fit your learning style.
So no more feeling lost in the crowd or bored because you're ahead of everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah, meet the student right where they are.
That's awesome. What about feedback, though? I remember back in the day getting tests back like weeks later, and by then I'd already forgotten about the material.
Right. You need that feedback like right away.
Yeah, exactly. So how does AI help with that?
Well, that's another area where AI can really shine. Imagine getting feedback in real time as you're working on a problem.
Oh, wow.
The AI could be like, hey, you made a little mistake here. Maybe try this instead, and kind of guide you towards the right answer.
So instead of getting frustrated and giving up, you get that little nudge you need to keep going.
Exactly. It keeps students motivated and helps them build that confidence.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Okay.
But how would this actually work in practice? Are we talking about robots watching over our shoulders while we're doing our homework?
Not robots exactly, but more like intelligent tutoring systems that are built right into the learning platforms.
What?
They can analyze your work, as you're doing it, give you that instant feedback, and even adjust the difficulty level. If you're finding things too easy or too hard.
That's amazing. It's like having a personal coach, but for schoolwork. Okay, so we talked a lot about personalized learning, but what about assessment? Earlier we talked about moving away from traditional tests, but how do we actually use AI to measure learning in a more meaningful way?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question.
Right.
If we want to measure those skills like problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, we got to go beyond those multiple choice questions.
Right. We need to see how students can actually use what they know.
Exactly. Apply that knowledge to real situations so AI can help us design assessments that are more interactive, more engaging.
Yep.
Like imagine simulations, where students have to make decisions, solve problems, work together, in teams.
Like a choose your own adventure, but for school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Each choice you make leads to a different outcome.
Wow.
And you got to use your knowledge and skills to figure out the best path.
That sounds really cool.
And AI can be used to create these complex scenarios, track student progress, and even give them that personalized feedback based on what they do.
So it's like a video game, but it's actually educational.
Exactly. Yeah. Learning by doing.
Okay. But are we putting too much faith in AI? Are students going to lose the ability to think for themselves?
That's a great question, and it's something we have to be careful about. We need to find that right balance between AI assistance and encouraging students to think independently. The goal is not to replace teachers or create robots.
Right.
It's about empowering students, helping them develop those skills and the confidence to succeed.
Yeah. To be successful in a world that's, constantly changing.
Exactly. It's all about creating a learning environment where AI is a tool.
Right.
A tool for exploration, for discovery, for growth.
Right. Not a replacement for good old-fashioned human interaction and critical thinking.
Exactly. It's not AI versus humans.
Right.
It's AI and humans working together.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that's where the real magic happens.
Wow. This has been such a fascinating conversation about how AI can personalize learning and make assessment way more meaningful. But we're not done yet. In the last part, we're going to dive into some of the challenges and opportunities that come with, bringing AI into education. So stay tuned. All right, so we're back for the final part of our AI deep dive. And, we've been talking about all this cool stuff about personalized learning and better assessments, but it all sounds pretty idealistic.
Yeah.
How do we actually make this happen in the real world?
You're right. Big changes like this, they don't happen overnight. There are definitely challenges we need to address.
Yeah, so challenge number one, where do we even begin? It's not like we can just wave a magic wand and suddenly every classroom has AI.
Yeah, it's a big change.
Oh, yeah,
it requires a lot of different things to happen, but I think first and foremost, we need to address, the resistance to change.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, a lot of educators have been doing things a certain way for a long time, their whole careers, so it's understandable that some people might be hesitant.
Right. Change is scary.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when it's something as important as education. So we need to do a good job of showing people that this isn't just some trendy tech thing.
Right.
That AI can actually lead to better learning.
So how do we convince them? I mean,
Well, it's about providing evidence.
Okay.
Showing examples of where AI is already working in schools, demonstrating the benefits
Right.
for both teachers and students, and addressing those concerns, head on.
So show, don't tell.
Mm.
Right. Okay, but what about the practical stuff? Like, not every school can afford fancy AI technology.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that all students benefit, not just the ones in wealthy districts?
That's a really important point. We have to bridge that digital divide.
Right.
We need to make sure that every student has access to the technology and the internet, to be a part of this new way of learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about giving them devices, it's about building the infrastructure.
Right, the support system, yeah.
Exactly, to make sure that everyone has a fair shot.
Okay, so that makes sense. But what about the teachers? Are we expecting them to become like AI programmers or something?
No, not at all. But professional development is going to be key.
Yeah.
We have to give teachers the training and the resources they need to feel comfortable using AI in their classrooms.
So it's not just about the tech skills, but also like how to actually use it to teach.
Right. It's about understanding how AI can make their teaching better, more engaging for students.
Okay, so it's about like a whole new way of teaching almost.
Exactly. And we also need to create a space where teachers can collaborate, share best practices, learn from each other and figure out this new world of education together.
Yeah, that's a great point because it's a lot to figure out. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from all this?
I think the most important thing is to be open to change, to be adaptable, because the world is changing so fast. And the skills that are important today might not be the same skills that are important tomorrow. So we have to keep learning.
Yeah, lifelong learning, right?
Exactly. And AI can be a really powerful tool to help us do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but it has so much potential to make learning better, more personalized, more relevant to the real world.
Yeah, and this deep dive, let's just scratch the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Right. The future of education is literally being written right now.
It's an exciting time to be involved in education,
It really is. So to all our listeners out there, stay curious, keep exploring, and get involved because who knows what amazing things are just around the corner. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.